natural thoughts have been going through my mind, and I worry sometimes that I don't want it to be about me. I don't want it to be my will that's done here today, but I want it to be God's will.
Yes,
Feed God's sheep.
yeah.
And I believe that that is very important, that we do that. One day, Jesus, he walked into a little home, and men and women began to bring all their sick and their troubled friends and loved ones to him, and the home was just packed.
Yeah.
That the doors was, nobody else could fit in. The windows, I'm sure they was standing all around it. Somebody brought a young man that had been sick, I guess from his birth, and he was laying on his bed and couldn't walk. And then they climbed up on top of the roof, Brother Charles, and they began to move the tiles, and they began to lower this man down right in so that he could be in front of Jesus, so that maybe Jesus would heal him. The Bible says that they lowered him down, and Jesus, he looked at him and he said, "Son, be of good cheer, for thy sins are forgiven thee."
Well, they begin to question that, didn't they?
Yeah.
Brethren, and there was Pharisees, and there was the Sadducees, and them, the leaders of the land. They were sitting there, and they began to look at one another, and they began to murmur to each other, and they began to say, "Who does this man think that he is, that he can forgive sin?"
Yeah.
And Jesus, brethren, he knowed their hearts, and he said, "I ask you, which is easier for me, whether to say thy sins be forgiven thee, or arise and walk?" Listen, but he said, "So that you know that the Son hath all power." He looked at him and he said, "Son, get up off your bed, brother." And he done it, Brother Colin. But I began to question that, and I began to wonder about that little saying, which was easier for my Lord to do. I got news for him. For him to heal a man, brethren, was much easier if he was going to forgive sin, that he knowed where that was going to lead him. It was going to lead him up Calvary, Brother Charles, and he knowed that he was going to have to die on the cross in order to forgive sin. Brother, listen to me, but I want you. Many thoughts have been going through my mind, brother. Listen, wondering what could be said, and what should I say here today? And you know, I look around and I see that you all are in the same boat as we are today. Listen, we don't fit in over here, and we don't fit in over here, and we sure don't fit in with the world, brother. But listen to me, I'll tell you one thing. The way that I got to know Brother Charles, many years ago, Brother Jason, I was living in Michigan, and I went out to a little church, the Ypsilanti Church, and I remember the first time I ever heard him come, brethren, and preach that day. Listen, and a couple of them joined church, and me and Brother Charles had to baptize them. And you know what, Brother Charles, he went back home down to Kentucky, Brother Cullen, and I didn't hear from him too much for a little while. And then a few months later, he come up again, and he began to preach, brother, and then somebody else joined, and we had to baptize them. And I'll never forget it here. Do you believe the old devil? He's always up and about his job, brother. And I heard the moderator of that church begin to say, "I wish that fella wouldn't come here anymore, or if he did and they joined church, they ought to use me or some of our old brothers, not Brother Daryl all the time." And that brother, that was jealousy creeping in, yes, Brother Charles. But I'm glad that God is not the author of confusion. to tell you a few things about natural things that I've seen, things that have happened to me. I lived my whole life in Michigan, Brother Charles, until I got 35 years old, and I moved down here into Pike County, and I hadn't been there very long. I began to get worried. I seemed like I didn't fit in with these associations, and some brothers didn't want me around. They didn't want you around, Brother Charles. I've got bad news for you, but you know what? I'm glad that Jesus, I'm glad that Jesus, brethren, He wants all men everywhere to come to Him, Brother Jerry. Listen to me, and you know, I moved down here in 1994, and I hadn't been here very long, brother, and I had to find me somebody to hang out with, somebody to go to church with, Brother Cullen, and you know what? We joined a little association, and you know what? That association, brother, they didn't seem to like us very good, maybe because I didn't go along with all their things. I'm just talking a little bit, Brother Charles. I've got a point that I'm trying to get to. But you know what? During that time, I started trying to find me a job, and I started teaching. Listen, I was substitute teaching, and I got me a little job, brother, and I'd go here for 1 week, and I'd go to this other school for a little while, brother, and you know what, brother, and listen to me. I finally laid in the very end of the school year. This one principal, he called me, and he said, we want you. You'll be here for the rest of the year, as long as school has. The teacher's gone, and this will be permanent for this part of the year, brethren. I began to teach 11th and 12th grade little boys. And Brother Cullen, and you know what? I was there on the very end of the school year, and right next to the very end of it, a couple of them little boys, they came up to me, and they said, Mr. Newsom, we hear that you are a preacher. I try to be the best preacher that God will bless me to be. And one of them said, I've never been to church before, but if you'd ever come over this way and preach, we'd all like to come and hear you someday. Lord, there was windows in the classroom, and I looked out that window, and I said, right there is a little church. If you'll meet me there on Sunday, I'll try to be there, brethren. And you know what? That church, it was in another association, but we had correspondence, Brother Charles. Lord, you talking about beginning to pray. I remember praying, Lord, if they come, would you give me a few words to speak? And brother, listen, on Sunday morning, I was sitting right about there, and I was watching out at the road. I seen a car drive in and drop one of them students off, and that car went back home, and in came a young boy by the name of Cameron. Lord, that little boy came in, and he sat down on the back row, and brother, listen, I got a little more nervous, and I began to pray, Lord, I've got one chance, brethren, and listen, and I got up that day, and if God ever blessed me, I felt like He did then, Brother Charles. You know what? I went back to that little boy after church, and I talked to him, and he said, Mr. Newsom, this is the first time I've ever went to church. Mom and Dad won't take me. He said, Dad dropped me off and went back home. Listen, and you know what, brethren? I left that little church that day, and summer broke. And you know what? Our little associations, mine that I was in, and the one that church was in, they broke fellowship. Lord, right at the end of summer, that little boy, he called me on the phone, and he said, Mr. Newsom, I don't know if you know who I am. And I said, Cameron, I know who you are. I've been able to get you out of my mind all summer long. And he began to talk to me, and he said, well, I heard something that day in church. I've not been able to get it out of my mind. Would you come back to that little church and preach again? How in the world, brethren? And would you explain it to a 17-year-old boy? Well, I can't go back over there. They don't want me anymore. I never told him that. I just said, Cameron, let me be praying about it, and let me be looking around. And I took his phone number down. Next week, Brother Charles, I climbed into my car, starting to go somewhere, and I turned on the radio, and they began to read the obituary letter, and I heard that little boy's name called. Lord, I began to cry in my car, and I said, God, I'm never gonna listen to men anymore. If you send me, I'm gonna go. If they don't want me, they'll have to set me down. I'm gonna declare the word of the Lord.
Yes, sir.
I may not be much in this world, but I feel like I'm what God's children. And if God wants us to preach, we ought to preach. If God wants us to sing, we ought to sing. Let's be up and about our Father's business.
Yes, sir. Ain't got no time.
Lord, I'm telling you today, listen, that God Almighty, He can answer prayer.
Yes, sir.
God can lead us. He can direct us. I'm telling you one thing here. Listen to me. I'll tell this and you, brethren, and we'll close it out or whatever you want to do. Lord, in 1985, I told you I never moved down for 9 more years. I was living in Michigan, and I had me a little dream one night. I didn't understand this dream, Brother Charles. Don't tell me God can't help you and lead you along the way. Lord, I found myself down in Kentucky on a little dark road. Listen to me. And I was walking on this road all alone, brother. And listen, and there was a church house sitting right up here against the road, and one over on this side of the road. And you know, I began to hear singing like I'd never heard before. You talking about a cool drink of water to a thirsty soul.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Lord, I began to hear the sound. Listen, and I ran up to that church house, and that door was locked on me, and then they wouldn't let me in, and I ran across the road over to this church house, and that door was locked on me. They wouldn't let me in. I was running from one to the next, and I could hear that sweet sound. And I got down that road a little ways. Listen, and I looked in between two churches, and there's a little path about that wide going between two of the churches, and I listened there, and that singing was coming from back in there behind them churches, Brother Charles. I never thought we'd have been together like this again. Between the churches, and I walked around back, and there sat another little church, a little white block building, and brother, listen, and I walked up there, and I opened the door, and there's one old man sitting up there, a man I'd never spoken to. I had heard of him, and listen, but I never spoke to that man. I didn't understand that dream. I wondered, why didn't I dream of that brother Ivan Amberg who I'd been with, or Brother Charles who I'd been with. I didn't understand that dream then, and that brother was sitting there all alone, and he said, Brother Daryl, I've been waiting on you to come, that we can get church started now. We started singing, and doors began to open.
What about that?
People began to flood in.
Yes, sir.
And you know what? We had church that day. And when I woke from that dream, I didn't understand that dream. Well, in 1994, I moved to Kentucky. And I told you I didn't know what I was going to do. I know a lot of them wouldn't take me, and I didn't want them to anyways. Listen, staying with Mom and Dad over there. Me and my wife hadn't even moved out and found us a place yet. And the phone began to ring, and my mom answered that phone. And listen, and she said, yeah, he's here. And she said, somebody wants you on the phone. And I said, who is it? She said, I'm not sure. That man began to talk, and he said, is this preacher Daryl Newsom? And I said, sometimes, I guess God blesses me to preach. I wasn't sure how to answer that, but listen, and he said, my name is Junior Dameron, and that's the one that I saw sitting there. He said, the Lord told me to call you. We got our church started then, and I'm telling you, we had no more than God had started. That he up and died, but just before he died, Brother Charles, he said, I want you to come and go with me. I said, where are we going? He said, over to a little church called G. Bennett Adams Church. There's a little young fellow over there. He sings like a bird, and I want you to know that man. Lord, I walked into that church, and there was Brother Cullen sitting, and that's how we got together. And then that old brother died. I'm telling you, God, brother, when men begin to close doors on you, God can open them. Lord, if men had their way, I'd be knocked right out of heaven's land. I'm glad, people, one of these mornings, I'm waiting on the call. I'm waiting on that man to open the door. I'm
to study this.
Yes, sir.
We ought to reason with one another.
Sure.
And we ought to find the truth of it right here.
Yeah, that's where you'll
This
find it.
ain't about tradition.
No, sir.
And I love the old Baptist way as much as anybody. But I want everybody to understand the truth is right here.
Amen.
Every man and every woman, they need to understand that. I'll tell that. Brother, listen, and then we'll bring it to a close, Brother Charles. Listen, I've told it many times. I know Brother Cullen and Brother Jason and them, they probably get tired, but it's real today. And I want men and women to understand that. Back in the 1820s, you young ones especially can look it up on the computer. Listen, there's two men born in the same decade, right around Chicago. Both of them was raised in good Christian homes. Both of them was raised by a good mom and dad. Done the best they know how to do right around Chicago. When one of them got up to 17, he enrolled in law school and he became a great lawyer. His name is Robert Ingersoll. I got some of his writings. But men would travel many miles back then to hear the great orator Robert Ingersoll talk. And you know what? He carried the Bible with him many places, Brother Jason. And he'd hold it up to his audience and he'd say, this is nothing but fairy tale. There ain't no truth in it. One day he took out his watch, brother, and out of his pocket, and he said, I'm going to prove to you that there is no God. And he said it for 5 minutes. He said, I'm going to give God 5 minutes, and he has my permission to strike me down in 5 minutes if there is a God in heaven. And brother, he went on talking, and at the end of 5 minutes, he clicked it off, and he said, see, I told you, that proves that there is no God. But one time he tried that. There's an old Baptist preacher sitting on the back road, Brother Jason. And that Baptist preacher stood up and he said, sir, I've got good news for you. I trampled down the mercy of God for years and years. Do you really think you're going to wear out his patience in 5 minutes' time? But in December, in 1899, death come to that man. I don't remember the month it was, but a heart attack took him out of this world like that. And you know what? He always preached, it's here and now. It's about us, it ain't about God. Because there wasn't no God, Brother Cullen. And you know what? They put a little sign out front saying there'll be no preaching done here. There'll not even be a song sung because it ain't a time to rejoice. You see, if that man was right, listen, his children would never see him again.
That's right.
It was all said and done, Brother Charles. But I'm glad that that other young man, when he turned 17 years old, God called him to preach. And brother, preach he did. I'm talking about D.L. Moody. Maybe some of you've heard of him. And he carried this Bible with him. And he'd say, this is the word of the Lord. Every bit of it's true. Even if I don't understand it, it's still every bit true. And brother, listen, one cold December morning, that man, brother, had been sick for quite a while. In 1899, one cold December morning, he was laying on his deathbed. His oldest son was there by his side, staying up with him all night long. And Dad started moving around, and Dad started saying a few words, and the boy got down by him, and Dad said, I feel the earth receding out from under me. I see the gates of heaven swinging open. Oh, Lord, I hear the angels singing.
Yes,
and you know what? That boy said, Dad, it's all right. You're just dreaming right now. And that man, he began to say, son, I'm not dreaming this time. But I did dream me a little dream last night. Oh, I seen the very Son of Glory come over and put a crown upon my head. But I'm not dreaming this time. And you know what? They gathered all around him. That boy woke Mom and the other brothers and sisters up. And they gathered around Dad's bedside. And they began singing a few songs of Zion. And Dad gently went to sleep. There's two ways to go out of this world. Oh, Lord, I'm telling you, that preacher would always say, when he was getting up in age, when he was almost 80 years old, he would stand and he would say, will you hear of me dying? When somebody tells you that I'm dead and gone from this world, or maybe you'll read my obituary in the newspaper. He said, I'm begging you, don't you believe a word of that? He'd say, because when I close my eyes here, I'll be more alive in heaven's land than I've ever been right here. I'm glad that, listen, that I'm born to die. Yeah, because I don't want to stay in this world always. I've got a better place to go to, and I want men and women to come and go. And I got news for everybody. Listen, if I was to go down to the courthouse there in Whitesburg and listen and met some young people or somebody needing something, if I started preaching, that's too bad for everybody standing around. I've made it up in my mind. I'm going to do what the Lord bids me to do. And brother, if that ain't all right with you, brothers, well, that's just it has to be. Because I want to follow the Spirit.
We live with the Spirit of God.
I want to do what God wants me to do. So that in that morning of all mornings, you brothers go ahead and get you the song if we're going to close it out. So in that morning of all mornings, when that book is opened, I wanted to hear him say, come, ye blessed of my Father, enter into the joys of heaven, Brother Charles.